In a world where words are weapons and pride is a fragile glass tower, we are often told to defend ourselves, to speak out, to retaliate. Yet every time we respond to provocation with anger or justification, we unknowingly give our power away. Imagine this. Someone hurls an insult at you, seeking to stir the storm within. You respond with silence, not out of fear, but out of unshakable composure. That silence is not a void, it is a mirror that reflects their own insecurity, their own weakness. This silence is like standing atop a mountain, calm and immovable, while the winds rage below. It is a silence so profound that it shatters egos like glass against stone. We think strength is in the shout, but true fortitude lies in the quiet resolve that says nothing, and yet says everything. This silence dismantles their expectations, their need to dominate, and their fragile sense of superiority. In choosing not to engage, we reveal who truly holds the power. They expect to fight, we give them the abyss. This is the silence that Stoicism teaches, a silence born of self-control, clarity, and a refusal to let others dictate our inner peace. Section 1. The Restraint of the Stoic. The ancient Stoics understood something that eludes many of us today. True power doesn't come from dominance over others, but from mastery over oneself. Epictetus, once a slave who rose to become a revered philosopher, famously said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In these few words lies a profound truth, that we are only ever in control of our inner world, and our responses shape our reality far more than external circumstances ever could. Consider this. When someone insults you, criticizes you, or tries to provoke you, what are they really doing? They're attempting to stir up emotions within you. They seek validation of their own ego by eliciting a reaction. Their words are designed like hooks, baited with scorn, hoping you'll bite and thrash about. But when you respond with anger, indignation, or even desperate justification, you fall into their trap. You hand them the strings of your emotional state, allowing them to manipulate your peace. In reacting, you confirm their power over you. Yet when you choose silence, not out of passivity, but out of intentional restraint, you snatch that power away. Your silence becomes a fortress. It tells them that your composure cannot be stolen, that your tranquility is impenetrable. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In refusing to engage, you demonstrate an unassailable strength that doesn't need validation or approval from anyone else. Silence is not emptiness. It is full of presence and intent. When you remain calm while others expect you to explode, your silence becomes deafening. It echoes louder than any rebuttal ever could. Their insults fall flat, their attempts to dominate dissipate into the void. The ego thrives on conflict and attention. Deprive it of both and it starves. This kind of restraint is not easy. It requires a level of self-mastery that only comes from practice and reflection. The Stoics trained themselves daily to observe their reactions, to recognize the gap between stimulus and response. This gap, however small, is where your power lies. You are free to choose silence, and in that choice, you stand taller than any shout could make you. Seneca once wrote, "A great mind is neither puffed up in prosperity nor cast down in adversity." The truly great minds, the unshakable ones, remain steady. They do not allow the winds of insult or praise to sway their inner state. Their silence in the face of provocation is not weakness, but a profound declaration of independence. They are free because they refuse to be puppets of external forces. Picture yourself in a storm. The winds rage, the rain lashes, but you are the mountain, unmoved, steady, and calm. This is the essence of Stoic silence. The storm will pass and you will remain. Those who sought to disturb you will be left grappling with their own frustration, realizing they could not touch you. Your silence has revealed their impotence. In a world where everyone is quick to react, quick to defend, and quick to fight, your silence is revolutionary. It disrupts expectations. It shatters egos not with force, but with the weight of its composure. It leaves the provocateur alone with their own insecurities, reflecting back the hollowness of their attempt to control you. This is the restraint of the Stoic, an act of defiance, an assertion of strength, and a commitment to inner peace. In this silence, we are free. In this silence, we find power. Section 2. The ego's fragile foundation. Ego, in its essence, is a fragile thing. It craves validation, recognition, and control. It is a house of cards propped up by others' opinions, easily toppled by indifference. When we observe those who are ruled by their ego, we notice a pattern. Their need for constant affirmation, their fear of being ignored, and their desperation to be seen as superior. The moment their sense of control is challenged, they lash out, hoping to reassert their dominance. Stoicism teaches us that such people are not truly powerful. Their strength is illusory, built on shaky foundations. True power does not need to boast, threaten, or degrade others. True power is serene, unshaken by praise or insult. As Marcus Aurelius reflected, a man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions. When someone's ambition is merely to inflate their ego, their worth is bound to that shallow goal. The ego-driven person thrives on reaction. Their sense of superiority is reinforced when they can provoke you. If they can make you lose your calm, they feel justified, affirmed. But this is where your silence becomes a weapon, a tool of quiet destruction. When you withhold your reaction, you deprive their ego of oxygen. Their attempts to provoke become futile. Their self-importance starts to crumble. Imagine an artist who paints a masterpiece only for the world to remain silent. No applause, no criticism, just silence. The artist begins to doubt the masterpiece's worth. The same principle applies to the ego. When you respond with silence, the person seeking to dominate you is left questioning themselves. They are forced to confront their own insecurities, their need for external validation. Your silence holds up a mirror to their fragile self-image. Seneca, in his timeless wisdom, reminds us, "He who is brave is free." To remain silent in the face of provocation requires courage. It demands that we confront our own impulses, our own desire to strike back. But in that restraint, we free ourselves from the chains of others' expectations. We no longer need their validation or approval. Our worth is anchored within us, untouchable by external forces. When we master the art of silence, we shift the power dynamic. We no longer play their game. They expect a fight. Instead, they receive a void. This void is unsettling because it leaves them alone with their own thoughts. Their need for conflict is met with an abyss, a space where their ego has nothing to feed on. They become like a flame that dies out, having nothing left to consume. The Stoics understood that we cannot control others, only ourselves. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let others think what they will. Their opinions are mere projections of their own inner world. Your silence communicates that their judgments hold no sway over you. It is the ultimate display of self-mastery and confidence. By practicing this silence, we reinforce a powerful message. We are governed not by the whims of others, but by our own reason and virtue. Our restraint becomes an act of defiance, a silent rebellion against the tyranny of ego. In this silence, we assert our independence, our fortitude, and our unwavering commitment to inner peace. Section 3. Mastering the temptation to react. The temptation to react is one of the fiercest battles we face. When someone's ego tries to provoke us, every fiber of our being might scream for retaliation. This impulse is natural, driven by our survival instincts, our need to defend ourselves. But while our instincts have evolved to protect us physically, they often fail us when it comes to protecting our inner peace. Reacting without thought only fuels the very fire we seek to extinguish. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The challenge is not in controlling the provocations of others, but in mastering our own response. Reacting is easy, it is the path of least resistance. But true strength lies in restraint. In the space between stimulus and response, we find our freedom. This is where the Stoics' fortitude shines. When someone insults us, undermines us, or attempts to dominate us, they are extending an invitation to chaos. To accept that invitation is to give them power over our emotions. The moment we engage in their drama, we enter their domain, a battlefield where ego thrives. They want us to play by their rules, to lower ourselves to their level. But silence refuses this invitation. Silence is a declaration that we refuse to be pulled into their storm. Seneca advises, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. By delaying our reaction, we gain the upper hand. We give ourselves the precious seconds needed to assess the situation with clarity. Is this battle worth fighting? Will engaging in this conflict bring us closer to virtue, or will it pull us further away? More often than not, we find that reacting serves no purpose other than momentary satisfaction, a fleeting victory that leaves our inner world in turmoil. Imagine standing on the shore watching waves crash against the rocks. The waves are the provocations, relentless and forceful, but the rocks remain unmoved, unbroken. This is the ideal of the Stoic, to stand firm in the face of provocations, to let the waves of ego crash without shaking our foundation. By remaining silent, we become like those rocks, steadfast, resilient, and unyielding. It is crucial to understand that silence is not weakness. It is not an admission of defeat. In fact, it requires far more strength to stay silent than to lash out. Anyone can react. It takes a warrior of the mind to refrain. As Epictetus put it, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. By refusing to react, we refuse to be mastered. We reclaim our autonomy, our inner power. We must train ourselves to recognize the impulse to react as a test, a challenge to our self-control. When the urge to respond rises, we can pause and ask ourselves, who do I serve in this moment? My ego or my higher self? The answer will determine whether we remain enslaved to the whims of others or rise above them. Each moment of silence strengthens our resolve, fortifies our character, and brings us closer to the Stoic ideal of tranquility. In mastering this temptation, we do more than protect our peace. We send a powerful message. We show that we are not puppets on the strings of others' provocations. We are sovereign over ourselves. And this sovereignty is deeply unsettling to those who seek to control us. When they realize that their attempts to provoke are met with a wall of silence, they are forced to confront their own powerlessness. Their ego begins to crumble under the weight of its own futility. Remember, silence is not passive, it is active restraint. It is a conscious choice to preserve your dignity and self-respect. In a world that rewards noise and reaction, silence is a revolutionary act. It is the mark of someone who has mastered themselves, who walks the path of virtue and wisdom. And in this mastery, we find the freedom that Stoicism promises, the freedom to be unshaken, no matter the storm. Section 4. The strength found in restraint. Restraint is a quality that has been misunderstood for centuries. Many perceive it as inaction, as weakness masquerading under the guise of patience. But true restraint is a demonstration of immense inner power. It is a skill honed by those who seek mastery over themselves, a tool wielded by the wise to shape their destiny rather than be swept away by momentary impulses. In moments of confrontation, the urge to speak, to defend, to retaliate is intense. Our mind races with thoughts of clever comebacks and arguments that could prove our superiority. But what does this achieve? Does it bring us closer to tranquility, or does it trap us further in a web of frustration? As the Stoics teach us, true victory lies in restraint. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. To restrain ourselves is to choose a higher path, a path that prioritizes long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. Restraint does not mean suppressing our feelings. It means understanding them, observing them without judgment, and then letting them pass. This process grants us a clarity that is otherwise clouded by ego. In practicing restraint, we protect our peace and fortify our character. We become immune to the petty provocations that seek to unravel our composure. Consider a fire. It thrives when it is fed by air, by fuel, by anything that sustains its blaze. Ego is no different. When we react to provocation, we feed the fire of another's ego. We give it oxygen to burn brighter and hotter, but when we restrain ourselves, we deprive that fire of fuel. We let it wither and die on its own. Our silence extinguishes their need for validation. It leaves them grappling with the emptiness of their own intentions. Restraint, therefore, is not passive submission. It is active control, a deliberate act of self-mastery. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This mastery is achieved through the consistent exercise of restraint. Each time we choose not to react, we strengthen our willpower. We build a fortress of resilience, a sanctuary that no insult or provocation can breach. In practicing restraint, we also set a powerful example for others. Our calm demeanor becomes a beacon of strength in a chaotic world. People notice when someone remains composed in the face of turmoil. They admire the person who can stand in the storm and not be shaken. This silent strength inspires respect, not the fleeting respect born of fear or dominance, but the lasting respect rooted in genuine admiration for self-control. It is also through restraint that we preserve our energy for what truly matters. Every time we react unnecessarily, we expend valuable emotional and mental energy. We allow ourselves to be drained by conflicts that serve no higher purpose. But when we practice restraint, we conserve our energy, directing it towards goals and pursuits that elevate us. We invest in our growth rather than squandering our power on petty disputes. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. When we feel provoked, much of our suffering comes from imagined outcomes, from our minds conjuring up scenarios of defeat or embarrassment. Restraint liberates us from this cycle of imagined suffering. By choosing not to engage, we deny our fears the chance to take root. We stand firm in the reality of the present moment, unmoved by the shadows of hypothetical defeat. In the end, restraint is a declaration of self-respect. It is a message to ourselves that our peace is sacred, that we value our inner world more than the fleeting satisfaction of external validation. When we master restraint, we become architects of our fate. We walk the Stoic path, guided by wisdom, fortified by virtue, and unshaken by the trivialities of the world. Our silence becomes a fortress. Our restraint becomes a weapon. And in this silent mastery, we discover a strength that no external force can break. Section 5. Silence, the weapon that dismantles ego. Silence is often misunderstood as surrender, as if by withholding our words we are forfeiting our power. But silence is not weakness. It is a finely honed weapon, capable of dismantling the very foundations of ego, both theirs and ours. It is a tool that, when wielded with intent, can bring forth clarity, reveal hidden truths, and foster growth. When we react to provocation, we feed the fire of another's ego. We give it oxygen to burn brighter and hotter. But when we restrain ourselves, we deprive that fire of fuel. We let it wither and die on its own. Our silence extinguishes their need for validation. It leaves them grappling with the emptiness of their own intentions. Restraint, therefore, is not passive submission. It is active control, a deliberate act of self-mastery. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This mastery is achieved through the consistent exercise of restraint. Each time we choose not to react, we strengthen our willpower. We build a fortress of resilience, a sanctuary that no insult or provocation can breach. In practicing restraint, we also set a powerful example for others. Our calm demeanor becomes a beacon of strength in a chaotic world. People notice when someone remains composed in the face of turmoil. They admire the person who can stand in the storm and not be shaken. This silent strength inspires respect, not the fleeting respect born of fear or dominance, but the lasting respect rooted in genuine admiration for self-control. It is also through restraint that we preserve our energy for what truly matters. Every time we react unnecessarily, we expend valuable emotional and mental energy. We allow ourselves to be drained by conflicts that serve no higher purpose. But when we practice restraint, we conserve our energy, directing it towards goals and pursuits that elevate us. We invest in our growth rather than squandering our power on petty disputes. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. When we feel provoked, much of our suffering comes from imagined outcomes, from our minds conjuring up scenarios of defeat or embarrassment. Restraint liberates us from this cycle of imagined suffering. By choosing not to engage, we deny our fears the chance to take root. We stand firm in the reality of the present moment, unmoved by the shadows of hypothetical defeat. In the end, restraint is a declaration of self-respect. It is a message to ourselves that our peace is sacred, that we value our inner world more than the fleeting satisfaction of external validation. When we master restraint, we become architects of our fate. We walk the Stoic path, guided by wisdom, fortified by virtue, and unshaken by the trivialities of the world. Our silence becomes a fortress. Our restraint becomes a weapon. And in this silent mastery, we discover a strength that no external force can break. Section 5. Silence, the weapon that dismantles ego. Silence is often misunderstood as surrender, as if by withholding our words we are forfeiting our power. But silence is not weakness. It is a finely honed weapon, capable of dismantling the very foundations of ego, both theirs and ours. It is a tool that, when wielded with intent, can bring forth clarity, reveal hidden truths, and foster growth. True silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of profound awareness. It is the hallmark of those who no longer seek external validation, because they have found strength within. When provoked, our first instinct is to speak out, to defend ourselves, to prove our worth. But ego thrives on this exchange. The more we engage, the more we entangle ourselves in its trap. When someone hurls an insult or challenges our identity, they expect retaliation. They crave the validation that comes from witnessing our discomfort, from knowing they have power over us. Our words feed their sense of control, but when we respond with silence, we deny them that power. Their ego falters, left to collapse under the weight of its own emptiness. As the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus wisely observed, we should not consider someone who speaks harshly to be our enemy. Rather, the harshness itself, and the need to respond to it, is the true adversary. Our real battle is not with others, but with the part of ourselves that seeks to retaliate. When we overcome that urge, we conquer our ego. Our silence becomes a declaration that we are no longer bound by the chains of impulsive reaction. We have risen above the need to prove ourselves to others. Consider the analogy of a mirror. When someone stands before a mirror and shouts, their reflection shouts back. But what if the mirror could choose silence? The one shouting would be left with nothing but the echo of their own voice. They would confront the emptiness of their aggression. Our silence, like that mirror, reflects nothing back to the provocateur. It forces them to see their own behavior for what it truly is, a desperate plea for attention, a manifestation of their own insecurities. Silence also protects our own ego from spiraling into destructive patterns. Every time we engage in verbal conflict, we risk inflating our sense of self-importance. We start to believe that our worth is tied to winning arguments or proving others wrong. But the more we seek validation through victory, the more fragile our sense of self becomes. True strength lies in the ability to let go of the need to win, to walk away from conflict without feeling diminished. Epictetus reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By choosing silence, we exercise control over our reaction. We refuse to let others dictate our emotional state. We stand firm, unwavering in our resolve, untethered from the drama that seeks to pull us down. This is not indifference, it is mastery. It is the deliberate choice to prioritize our inner peace over fleeting satisfaction. Furthermore, silence often speaks louder than any words we could utter. It carries a weight, a presence that commands attention. When we refuse to engage in petty disputes, we signal that we operate on a different level. Our silence says, I am not moved by your attempts to provoke me. My peace is beyond your reach. This quiet confidence is more impactful than any verbal rebuttal. It exudes a calm authority that others cannot help but respect. Silence also creates space for reflection. In the absence of immediate reaction, we give ourselves the opportunity to think, to analyze, to respond from a place of wisdom rather than emotion. This pause allows us to see the situation more clearly, to recognize whether engagement is truly necessary. More often than not, we realize that silence is the best response. It preserves our energy and keeps us aligned with our higher purpose. Seneca once wrote, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." When we meet provocation with silence, we strip the situation of its power. We rob conflict of its ability to harm us. Our calm, composed demeanor becomes an impenetrable shield, protecting us from the chaos that others seek to create. We emerge unscathed, our dignity intact, our peace undisturbed. In the end, silence is not a retreat. It is a strategic advance. It is the quiet assertion that we are in control, that our worth does not hinge on others' perceptions or provocations. Our silence dismantles their ego by refusing to play their game. It preserves our strength, allowing us to focus on what truly matters, our growth, our virtue, and our inner peace. Let us embrace silence as the weapon it is, sharp, powerful, and resolute. Let us wield it not out of fear, but out of wisdom. For in silence we find our greatest strength, our deepest clarity, and the path to true freedom. Section 6. Mastery over the self. The ultimate triumph. In the end, the battle is never truly with others. The greatest challenge, the fiercest war, is the one we fight within ourselves. The ego we seek to dismantle in others is merely a reflection of the ego we must master within. Stoicism teaches us that external events and provocations are beyond our control, but our responses, our thoughts, our actions, our silence, belong entirely to us. This is where true power lies, in the mastery of the self. To be unaffected by the noise of the world, to stand firm while others crumble beneath the weight of their own insecurities, is the mark of true strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The mastery of our mind, the refusal to let external forces dictate our peace, is the essence of Stoicism. Imagine standing in the midst of a storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes at your face, the thunder crashes around you. Yet you remain still, unmoved, your inner world a sanctuary of calm. This is the strength that comes from self-mastery. The storm represents the chaos, the insults, the provocations of the world, but you are the calm in its center, a pillar of unshakable fortitude. Your silence, your refusal to engage with pettiness is a testament to this mastery. When we respond with silence, we affirm that we are not slaves to our emotions. We refuse to be dragged into the arena of reaction, where ego battles ego in a futile dance. Instead, we choose the higher path. We choose to remain observers, conscious of our own impulses, yet strong enough to let them pass like fleeting clouds. This is not suppression, it is transformation. We do not bottle our emotions, we transcend them. We recognize their presence, but we are no longer controlled by them. Seneca reminds us, "He who is brave is free." And what greater bravery exists than conquering oneself? The freedom that comes from self-control is a freedom no one can take away. When we silence our own ego, when we refuse to be baited by the insecurities of others, we taste a victory far sweeter than any argument won. We achieve a liberation that radiates through every aspect of our lives. This path is not easy. It requires constant vigilance, relentless self-awareness, and the courage to face our own weaknesses. But with each moment of silence, with each refusal to engage in petty battles, we grow stronger. We inch closer to the ideal of the Stoic sage, the one who meets life's challenges with unwavering equanimity. In this journey, every act of restraint, every choice to remain calm, becomes a step toward our highest self. When we cultivate this inner fortitude, we inspire others to do the same. Our silence becomes a beacon, a silent invitation for those around us to rise above their own destructive impulses. We show them that there is another way, a path of dignity, of strength, of unshakable calm. And in this way, we dismantle not only individual egos but the very culture of conflict and reactivity that plagues our world. So let us commit to this path, not out of fear but out of purpose. Let us embrace silence as a tool of power, a shield against the chaos, a weapon against our own weaknesses. As we walk this path, let us remember that the ultimate victory is not in defeating others, but in mastering ourselves. For in that mastery lies true freedom, true peace, and the unassailable strength of the Stoic soul. If you found value in this exploration of self-mastery, remember to like this video and subscribe to The Modern Stoic. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a time when your silence spoke louder than words. Let's build a community dedicated to strength, wisdom, and the pursuit of inner peace.